Of course, by now you've heard the big news is that Kamala Harris has chosen Tim Walz of Minnesota to be her running mate. The dude is as far left as they come. They still haven't put out any policy positions. Her website's been updated to show Tim Walz, but there's still nothing on it. I have no idea what their plans are. And yet there are all these people screaming and cheering blindly like morons for these people who don't represent anything except the narrative, I guess. So I'm torn. I can't tell if their plan is just to lose and have these placeholder candidates just spiral out and burn out, or they're actually hoping just to win with a shadow campaign. So we'll talk about that. We got basically a ton of news breaking down who Tim Walz is for those that don't know. And we'll talk to you about, I don't think you need to know anything about Kamala Harris because she doesn't have anything to know about her. But Tim Walz really did outshine her. And this is probably embarrassing for Kamala. He's the actual politician with a record, with policies. And you know what? They could have chosen Josh Shapiro out of PA. We all know why they didn't. Because, Democrats have a problem with people who are pro-Israel, among other attributes, which we'll talk about. Before we get started, my friends, head over to mypillow.com/Tim. Use promo code Tim and buy pillows. Support the show. We're all big fans of Mike Lindell, and you asked and they listened. They're finally bringing you their most requested offer ever. Get the queen size premium MyPillow, now only $19.98. MyPillow is made with patented adjustable fill. It adjusts to your exact individual needs regardless of your sleep position. Helps keep your neck aligned. It holds its shape all night long, so you get the best sleep of your life. That's not all. Get their 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets, only $25. The brand new mattress topper as low as $69.98. Get their famous MyPillow bed sheets for low as $25 and so much more. Go to mypillow.com. Use promo code Tim. You'll get a huge discount. Shout out to Mike Lindell again. Or use the phone number 1-800-925-9096. And also, don't forget to head over to timcast.com, click Join Us to become a member and support our work directly. As many of you have pointed out, this is interesting. Maybe if you guys are watching this after the fact, you don't know this. But for those that are watching live, YouTube's heavily shadow banned this here episode. Gee, I wonder why. We all knew that as soon as we started kicking into full swing election season, and to be honest, I probably thought it would be a little bit earlier, they were going to start dropping the censor hammer quite a bit. I'll also just add that we talked about how Google's an illegal monopoly the other day with no remorse, and they're probably not too happy with this show. So share the show, but more importantly, head over to timcast.com, click Join Us to become a member, because your membership is what makes all of this possible. And in the event that YouTube does ban the show or delete us, we're only going to exist if you guys are members. So click Join Us, and you will also get access to our members-only uncensored show coming up tonight at 10 p.m. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Pastor. Is that okay that I call you Pastor? That's John Amanchukwu.
Thank you so much, Tim, for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Who are you? What do you do?
So I'm a pastor, as Tim has stated. I'm a father of 3 wonderful children. I travel the country speaking at school board meetings, addressing issues germane to critical race theory, gender theory, and queer theory. I'm also a husband, been married now for 16 years, and I'm fighting the woke left every day. And we see what's going on right now as it relates to our current election. There's a lot of identity politics going on. And in my community, if you are black, like really black, not the Kamala style black or whatever. If you're really black, you are expected to vote for the Democrat candidate. But when you choose to not give in to what is called racialized social constraint, then people cancel you, deplatform you, and say negative things about you. And so I'm in that bucket. So I'm swimming upstream, and I'm glad to do it because I have truth on my side.
Right on. You brought some books that we can't actually show.
Yeah, I could show the cover of the book, but we can't open the book, because
they give it to kids.
No, yeah, they want exactly.
And at the rally today, which we should probably wait to get into, but at the rally, they're like, they want to ban books.
Sure.
And I'm like, we'll get into it. It's going to be fun. Thanks for hanging out. We got Libby here as well.
I'm here. I'm Libby Emmons with the Post Millennial and humanevents.com. And I'm glad to be here, you guys. And I'm glad to be here with John, who I've talked to before about crazy Lego woke stuff. Really fascinating. We'll have to get into it.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm so glad that you're here tonight. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for scnr.com. That's Scanner News. Check out their work at Timcast News on the internet. And let's get started.
Well, here's the story from The Guardian. Most of you probably know this already because it was big news this morning. Kamala Harris bets on Tim Walz as running mate we are going to win. Well, they just had a big rally in Pennsylvania, and they said a whole lot of nothing. They basically just insulted Donald Trump and J.D. Vance over and over again, talked about how they were bad. They didn't talk about anything they intend to do. I have no idea what's going on. If you go to KamalaHarris.com, the first thing you're greeted with is this: Harris Walz, with your help, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are ready to win this election. Okay, well, what are you going to bring the American people? Nothing. Literally nothing. They have nothing here. And so I just got to tell you guys, I'm seeing all these conservatives making posts, and they're laying down in the mud with the Democrats. Look, when the Democrats come out and their only campaign position is Trump is bad and J.D. Vance is weird, and the response from people on the right is, no, you're weird, that's exactly what they're hoping for. Because the response should be, prices are too high. When they say J.D. Vance is weird, you go, inflation is up. That's the response. And so I'm seeing all this, and I'm like, if there are people willing to stand behind Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania, waving flags and cheering for her when she offers them literally nothing, I don't think you're going to convince those people, if anything, by just saying, no, you're weird. So I don't know. We'll break down who Tim Walz is and his crackpot policies. What say you, panel?
I just can't believe how empty this campaign is. And I think Tim Walz is an interesting choice. There's so much to unpack from today. I'm kind of trying to figure out where to start. But we had that call, right? That this obviously stage call where Kamala's in her power suit and she's talking to him, calls him buddy, and he's dressed like a regular guy. And again, to me, this just shows that all of this is a performance. It's theater. Tim Walz is interesting because he was at one point sort of a moderate Democrat and has really drifted into more progressive lanes. Like at one point, the NRA had given him a pretty good rating, and then the Parkland shooting happening, and he completely moved towards really strong gun control positions, and they eventually revoked their positive views of him. And so I think this is sort of it's interesting that this is who the Democrats have picked to be the second person on this ticket, someone who has gone from being moderate to more extreme. Again, Kamala Harris was Biden's more progressive option, his sort of olive branch to progressive members of his party. But for me, the biggest thing is the state flag for Minnesota, right? They had this state flag and they moved it to be this horrible thing. And that's kind of what I think this ticket now represents, taking things that are cool and unique to America and making them bad.
Well, I think that Tim Walz wants to trans your kids. He wants to turn America into a sanctuary nation for trans kids.
I just think these people don't actually represent anything.
Well, he does represent that. He has gone out
cult.
And he represents
whatever
the
the cult says. It makes no sense. There's no logic. They keep saying the same things over and over again because it's just a cult. And the scary thing is, you look at the way you've got these, I don't know what you'd want to call them. It's a non-theistic religion, wokeness. And you can see people on X that they know they're lying. That they're intentionally playing by a script to manipulate people. They don't represent any values. They just represent this narrative. And there are tons of stupid people who just follow it for whatever reason. So Tim Walz, when he's defending these things, when he's for these things, he's just for whatever the machine tells him to be for. Mm-hmm. That's why there's no policies listed on their website.
Not a single one.
Can we just say this? We are less than 3 months out from a major election, and the Democratic Party has no platform. None.
And wouldn't that be your first priority if you had to drop in Kamala Harris? Her campaign is 16 days old now. Wouldn't that be the first thing on the website, the policies for people to rally around? No, because it's all about identity politics. And also, if they're not going to print their policies, then you have to go off the records. And Tim Walz is not endearing to moderates in America. And Kamala Harris, it's not a real position. She's sort of going to claim victory from whatever she thinks the Biden administration did well, and then she's going to point to her record as prosecutor, which we know is really controversial.
Well, her campaign manager, Julie Chavez Rodriguez, was giving comments about the border and what was going to happen there with border security, and she said, I think at this point, the policies that are, having a real impact on ensuring that we have security and order at our border are policies that will continue.
Nothing.
So Tommy Stevenson with Post Millennial today took a look at that, and he was like, well, if you look at the proclamation that came out in June, it turns out that they have provisions to let in just anyone who shows up.
Yeah, it really makes no sense. Karl Marx said it this way. He said, accuse your enemy of what you are doing as you are doing it to create confusion. And so at the end of the day, they always like to talk about the right is going to be a threat to democracy. But truly, they are the threat to democracy. when you back up and take a look at the record of a person like Tim Walz and the record of Kamala Harris and the record of Joe Biden and the record of Barack Hussein Obama, they all are in the same bucket. What bucket is that? It's the bucket of seeking to trans our children, seeking to destroy our constitutional republic, and it's a plan that has been formulated to even kill babies in the womb. And so it's a disastrous movement. They have nothing to offer to America but more of the same. So regardless of whether or not Kamala Harris is put forth or Tim Walz is put forth, it's the same party. Mm-hmm. Birds of the same feather. And so we know this. We know that more than ever, we need to get back to the real issues. Inflation, the economy, the fact that many students are trapped in a public school system that's failing them. I say it this way, that in the early 1960s, blacks were locked out of the public school system, but today they're trapped in. You would think that Kamala Harris would want to liberate minorities, right, and give them the best options for upward mobility in America, but they don't want that. They want to break the back of the middle class. They want to destroy our economy, and that all fits into the Marxist regime, and they're just going to jettison that plan even forward the more.
Yeah. One of their big criticisms of Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, and they being progressives in this case, when he was on the list, in addition to other things, one of the criticisms was the fact that he had voted in favor of some, essentially school choice options, right, which progressives, Democrats will tell you that's bad for, students of color. It's bad for poor communities. It's bad for all of these people, when actually I would think being able to spend dollars in a way that serves your individual student would be empowering and would be for the long-term benefit of the students.
So I'm hoping that Tim Walz and Kamala are really just throwaway candidates. That the Democrats have realized they can't win. The polling is bunk.
Sure.
It's skewed in favor of Democrats, and they really do intend for Trump to win. So I've got this tweet here from Steve Kornacki. This guy is, NBC, MSNBC. And he says, the results of Walz's 22 governor's race in Minnesota don't suggest he provides an obvious boost with blue-collar voters Democrats have been shedding in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And so you can look at the numbers, and since 2012, his districts these districts that he won have skewed dramatically towards the GOP. Was the idea, I guess, that they're trying to convey is that this guy represents like the white working class or something?
They say that he connects with rural farmers and that he is like kind of going to counterbalance the effect of who Vance brings to the table. I don't believe it. But
the best explanation I've seen is this is what woke elites think working class people act like.
Mm-hmm. That's what I got from the video today, where they have this staged, obvious video of him pretending to take this call from Kamala that they've already had a conversation about clearly. Otherwise, why does he have a film crew following him around to be obvious about it? But there is this messaging that he is going to do, a lot for her ticket. They'll say, vice presidential candidates don't necessarily win you the election, but they can lose you the election. So he's supposed to be kind of strengthening the ticket by appealing to rural Americans, by sort of appealing to a demographic that they think Vance appeals to, and then also sort of adding a little bit more experience to the ticket because he was a member of Congress at one point. I don't think that's going to be the effect.
How can he possibly represent the working class when he went out there just a few days after George Floyd, which was May 25th, 2020?
Sure.
And he went out, which was exactly 10 weeks into lockdown. Mm-hmm. But he went out there and was asking people to get out of the street and saying like, hey, don't riot. We understand your protest. We want to make room for the protest. You had the Minneapolis mayor at the time saying, can you please send in the National Guard? They then struggle sessioned the mayor in public. And you had Walz saying, I will not patronize you as a white man without living those lived experiences. As the city of Minneapolis was burning, some buildings burned to the ground.
Sure. And that was all intentional. He told the National Guard to stand down. He told law enforcement to take a knee. His daughter apparently at one point leaked the plan of the National Guard as well.
She sure did.
She did so. And all of that it's a strategy. By selecting Tim Walz, Kamala Harris just resurrected the BLM movement. That's what this is about.
That's all she's got.
That's all she has. There's an undertone in this country that I believe that the threat to democracy that they speak of, they are the real threat. And this thing may incite some some trouble in the coming days ahead. I'll say it that way and leave it there. But they are not happy. They know that they're not going to win. I thought initially that Michelle Obama would be the person that gets put ahead of Kamala Harris, but Joe Biden messed up. He wanted to select a black female in the same way that he destroyed the legacy of Ketanji Brown Jackson. What was the criteria? I want a black female. And so you do that twice, and now you're stuck with the black female, but Michelle Obama would have been a more formidable candidate to run, but you can't just replace Kamala Harris because she's going to be angry about that. And if you put a white person in front of Kamala Harris, then they're going to lose all of their black support. Consider this, in 2020, President Trump received nearly 9% of the black vote. And this year, in 2024, he's trending about 23 or 24%. So he's doing well. And so they had to find a way to stick with the narrative to win as much of the black vote as possible and to dupe Americans. People, do not be fooled. We are being had. We are being taken. We're being lied to. And what's taking place today with this guy coming forward, Tim Walz, is a reminder that the Democrat Party is defunct.
Let's pull up the polls. So we got this new polling in aggregate for you guys. Kamala Harris, of course, is winning in aggregate, with all the latest polls showing he's up 1, 1, 4, 3, 3, giving her an aggregate of 0.5% ahead of Donald Trump. But let's do this. Well, it's still within the margin of error.
Yeah.
When they compare this to Joe Biden, at the same time in 2020, Biden was up with 6.4% ahead. Clinton was 6.9. Of course, Trump still beat Hillary Clinton. Kamala Harris is at 0.5. This still does favor a Donald Trump presidency. But let's do this. I got 270 to win. You know I love to bring it up. And currently the polling shows with all of the safer states, you've got 251 Republican, 226 Democrat. So let's check this. Arizona. Currently, Donald Trump is winning Arizona. That's Nevada. Wrong one. So let's do Arizona goes red. Then we've got Nevada, and Trump is currently winning in Nevada. However, I don't think it's fair to say he's winning Nevada because Insider Advantage's poll, the only other one which has Trump up 10, is from before Kamala Harris. So it's actually Joe Biden. I don't think you could use that. That doesn't make sense. Since she announced that she was running and Biden stepped down, she's up 2. So I say we give Nevada to the Democrats there, just to play devil's advocate. Wisconsin, Trump has by 0.2, and I do think it's fair to say 0.2. So we'll give that edge to Donald Trump over in Wisconsin. Let's check Michigan. Michigan currently held by Harris, so we'll make that one blue. And then I do believe Trump is easily winning in Pennsylvania. Yeah, 1.8 points. There's no poll that has Kamala Harris ahead in Pennsylvania. So this is what's really strange to me.
I agree.
Why did she choose the guy from Minnesota, which is blue, when she needed Pennsylvania to swing things? Now, if she won Pennsylvania with this current polling, Trump still wins with 272. But at the very least, that's what you want to try, right? I got a theory. My suggestion is that Kamala's actually doing substantially worse than people realize. The polls are way over favoring her.
Yeah, sure.
And their internal polling shows that they're actually weak in Minnesota. The polling shows that in Minnesota, it may be Democrat, but barely. It could be a toss-up state that we're not considering. They recognize they could actually lose Minnesota. And so their thought process was, let's get Tim Walz. Hopefully that can win us some edge in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. But we need a defensive barrier in Minnesota. Otherwise, we lose that, too.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that she is not secure that she has her base. And the base is far left. The base is they hate what's going on in Israel. They really want America to stop supporting, Israel at all costs. That's one thing. They're much further to the left on trans stuff and LGBTQ stuff, even than Biden, who hosted Dylan Mulvaney at the White House to hear about how children need sex changes and all of that. And I think Kamala Harris and the Democrats know that they need to go get that base. And that's why she's got to go left here.
Yeah.
Which is not the common political wisdom. I mean, normally you'd go left during the primary and then center toward the general election. But since she didn't actually run in any primaries and wasn't even considered to be a candidate for all of these months, she's got to go after her base right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I also have this theory that part of the infrastructure of both the media and the people who have joined the Kamala Harris campaign believe that abortion rights is the number one issue and will change everything. You were hearing this messaging before in January. AP News still does have an abortion tab going where you can check up on all of these things. And of course, there is legislation that's occurring. It's not that it's not an issue, but they sent Harris out on this nationwide quote unquote women's rights, but really pro-abortion tour.
Right.
And that's actually the first place that I know of that she met Walz. He toured a Planned Parenthood with her. And so in some ways, I think that there is misunderstanding of what's really driving people to the polls from the people who are advising the Harris campaign. I think they believe that progressive issue, like they might not be able to win the voters who are saying we don't agree with what the Biden-Harris administration did in regards to Israel and Palestine, but we generally are very supportive of women's rights. They think if they message hard enough on certain issues, they'll be able to basically progressive coerce everyone that they need to support them. I don't think it'll work.
All right, so we took a look at the polls, right? Let's play another game, however. I'm going to reset the map, and let's take a look at the Polymarket betting odds. Pennsylvania going to Kamala Harris in the betting odds. Betting odds currently favor Kamala Harris to win Pennsylvania. Wisconsin, Kamala Harris currently favored to win in Wisconsin. Oh boy, you see where this is going. Michigan, Kamala Harris heavily favored to win in Michigan. This is, again, Polymarket's predictions. Nevada goes Trump. Arizona goes Trump. So Nevada and Arizona. And look at that. Democrats win. 270 to 268. North Carolina, Georgia, whatever, that goes to Donald Trump. With this in mind, I actually don't think polls matter. I actually think the betting odds matter substantially more.
You think so?
Betting odds are the wisdom of the crowd, and often you have to consider that there are some people who know things too, who are making bets and large bets, which could swing things. If there's internal polling suggesting that Kamala's doing better than people realize, the reason maybe why she chose Tim Walz is because they're actually not worried about Pennsylvania. They've got an advantage there that Trump people in the polls aren't considering, or more importantly, perhaps there's someone who knows there's a shadow campaign, perhaps, and they're not going to lose the Rust Belt and the Blue Wall.
Maybe. I mean, it's interesting because I had said a couple weeks ago, I think if one of the reasons she wouldn't pick Shapiro is because they do not think they can win Pennsylvania. They're looking at it as an abandoned cause, and so this late in the game, they're pouring all their resources into
she's
different
super
swing states.
she's super opposed to fracking, and that's like that's a big job thing in Pennsylvania.
And I mean, the attempted assassination of President Trump in Pennsylvania was incredibly impactful. I just think that he'll have strong turnout there. But, you know, all of this to say, these are all strategic decisions that these campaigns are making because things are coming down to the wire. I mean, there is not enough time for Kamala Harris to really develop a strong enough message. At least that's my sense of it, because she doesn't have one right now. Everything they're doing is on the attack because she has nothing to offer the voters.
Yeah, and you keep in mind with this, since January 2021, rent is up 21%, all under Biden-Harris. Since January 2021, grocery costs are up over 21%, all under Biden-Harris. Dining out is 22% more expensive under Biden-Harris. Public transportation costs up over 27% more, all under Biden-Harris. Electricity bills are 29% higher under Biden-Harris. Tickets to sporting events cost 34% more.
Oh, that's the worst one.
That's the worst one.
You really want to get to a baseball game one of these days? It's just so fun, you know?
Yeah, I like a baseball game.
Nice hot dog. You get a beer. You watch a baseball game. But what'd you say it was? 30?
Up 34%.
34%. Oh, we can't afford it now.
Yeah, so you can't.
We could, but, you know.
Yeah.
Well, between that and the stock market crash.
Oh, yeah. Kamala crash, right? And so your escapism, opportunity to go out and just to have a wonderful time with your family, that's no longer there. Even the thought of being a first-time home buyer. And this current market and economy, that's something that's been removed from the table. And all of this is indicative of the fact that we have a political regime that is destroying and bankrupting America. And people feel it. If they vote based upon the economic ability and the lack thereof in America, there's no way that Kamala Harris will win. But if they vote solely on emotional things and this idea of they're going to take us back, I get upset when I hear that, because take us back to what? You can't. We heard that earlier today when Tim Walz was speaking. We don't want to go back. Take us back to what? Back
what?
to
Exactly.
1973 when they ruled for, and allowed Roe v. Wade to be passed, where blacks could be aborted at an alarming rate, supporting the regime of Margaret Sanger? Are we going back to the Civil Rights Act that the Democrat Party resisted? Are we
War?
Yeah.
Pro-war draft?
Pro-war draft. Are we going back to that? Are we going back to, I don't know, the Jim Crow era? And the Jim Crow laws were drafted by the Democrat Party. Are we going back to slavery? A part of our country, that's a blot on American history. But at the end of the day, it was Republicans that wanted to free the slaves. So what are we going back to? What is this fear of going back? They don't want to go back to an America First agenda. They want a globalist agenda.
See, this is the thing. There really is the logic. It's what does left and right mean? Logic versus emotion. Mm-hmm. The left has no policy positions. There's no logic here. It's just they hate.
Sure.
It is the Democrats are the party of pure hatred. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating when they claim they're for democracy, they're for love, but they're vile, angry people, Antifa, far leftists, violent rioters, marching through the streets, smashing and destroying things.
Right.
Certainly not for democracy. Jamie Raskin talking about blocking Trump even if he legitimately wins.
Yeah.
They're not for democracy. Not that I think the Republicans are for democracy as the word either, but the Democrats are certainly lying about how they are.
Sure.
But they just say it. They just say, we're for freedom. That's what Kamala Harris said today. They're really going for low IQ, lowest common denominator. And you know what really irks me is that we can't, because nobody on the right's going to fall for it. Mm-hmm. If I came out and literally was like, John, Kamala Harris wants to ban Zinn. Like we make that joke, like it's going to convince Gen Z. No Gen Z right-wing person really thinks she's going to do that.
Right.
Because they're not stupid.
Right.
So we're stuck in this position where we have to be honest all the time, and they get to lie and get away with it.
That's right. And it is because it's this whole feelings thing.
I am kidding, by the way.
They do that.
It's that we are all actually honest people.
Well,
we are,
there's that too.
We are
but also
trying
there
to
is
be
a logic
correct.
Thing. There is a logic thing, right?
Sure.
Like when I talk to leftist people about what they think is going to happen, they say things like, but I just hate Donald Trump so much, he's so bad. And you say, but why? And what is bad? And they don't have any answer for you other than that maybe they don't like his personality, which you don't like. I don't like lots of personalities. It doesn't matter. It's like irrelevant to what they can, if they can do their job.
Yeah, it is. It's always attacks on, well, he's too crass, or he said this thing I don't like.
Sure.
And that's why I think
I
they've
don't
had
like
to
his little dances.
Right, or they've had to try and legitimize some of the attacks they have on him through the lawfare, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mitt Romney had said at one point in one of his more recent statements that he wouldn't support Trump because he can't support someone who's been accused of sexual violence against a woman, because he's referring to
Like
the
Joe
E. Jean Carroll
Biden.
case. Right. Also, we all know that E. Jean Carroll case was crazy and not fair.
There's no date. She can't tell you when
Right.
the thing happened.
But this
and
is-
she had to revise when she thought the thing happened based on the dress she was wearing at the time, which it turned out
Right.
had not yet been released by that fashion house.
Right. So they're saying they are creating facts afterwards, right? They've been saying since 2016 he's bad, he's mean to women or not nice to them or whatever. And so eventually they were like, well, we have to find some kind of way to legitimize this they can't challenge. And it's
Meanwhile,
such
his daughters aren't the
manipulation.
ones whose diaries get leaked showing that that he showered with his daughter
There
at
aren't videos of
inappropriate
him
ages.
sniffing children. I mean,
There's none of
look,
that. There's videos of him, being very generous and kind with his grandchildren.
I just saw one of him like holding a toddler at a rally, and the kid is just saying like whatever last word. He's like, "Do you want to go back to your mom and dad or stay here with Trump?" And the kid goes, "Trump."
I don't even care about Trump. Right? I'm just like, dude, please tell me what you want. Democrats, tell me what you want.
Right.
I don't care. You can say, I hate Trump. I'm like, okay, so what do you want? I just want to, there's nothing.
Don't you think they're telling you by what the results of their actions are?
They don't want anything. When Donald Trump wasn't the front runner, Ron DeSantis was. They were just saying the same things about Ron DeSantis.
Yes,
They were running on the news like, oh, Ron DeSantis is worse than Trump. And it's like, ugh. And then Trump wins, and they're like, oh, we're back to Trump now.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Right.
They have nothing to offer. And we all know that that's clear. Since we are not given to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we don't abide by the mental atrophy thereof, therefore we can see clearly of what's going on. But even with that question of DEI, Trump was asked the question, do you think that Kamala Harris is a DEI hire? Rachel Scott asked him that question on a panel. And Trump asked her, he said, can you tell me the definition of DEI? And she couldn't even define it. And so they're asking questions and they can't even define the focal part of the question themselves. And so really what you're seeing is a big charade. This is solely about making sure that they can continue to push their agenda with trans zealots, that they can continue to annihilate, mutilate, castrate children, that they can continue to divide Americans, because Marxism thrives under division. There always has to be this dynamic of white versus black, rich versus the poor, male versus female, the patriarchy versus the matriarchy. It's always some type of division. And this is what Tim Walz has been brought into this battle to do, because he is the tip of the spear for pushing division. And so Kamala Harris is going to use him as a tool to push division as we approach the coming of this election. That's what we're going to see.
Yeah.
Let's jump to this story from SCNR. Harris VP pick Tim Walz excoriated over socialist and far-left positions. Criticisms of his past policies have resurfaced after Harris announced the Minnesota governor would be her running mate. Okay, look, he's the George Floyd riots governor. Mm-hmm. He's an admitted socialist.
But we can get out there, reach out, make the case. And for one thing, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness.
He's an admitted socialist, and let's see.
But it's neighborliness.
It's neighborly.
He's far left on abortion. He's far left on what he wants 16-year-olds to vote. I kind of feel like they chose him because they want to lose.
I think they.
I hope you're right.
I think they chose him because they want white politicians to act like him. I think they want them to go from being somewhat moderate to being extremely progressive. They think progressivism is the only way forward for America because they want the destruction.
Well, Kamala is going to be the fall girl, right? Joe Biden was on his way down and out. And so something happened behind closed doors. We don't know the truth of what has taken place thus far. No one's speaking about it. No one's talking about it. For a while, we couldn't even find President Biden. But it seems as if he was getting ready to be smashed, Biden, and it's like playing football, and you pitch the ball to someone else to make sure that you don't get hit so that someone else gets sacked. And I think that Kamala Harris is soon to be sacked, and they selected Tim Walz to push her agenda as well, but they're both going down. And I do believe that in 2028, you'll see the resurrection of the Obamas and Michelle Obama. They wanted a clean slate this time because they don't think that they can compete with President Trump. So therefore, they just pitched the ball to someone else to lose.
So do you think that Michelle Obama wants to run for president?
I think that she does.
Really?
Yeah.
I've always thought she didn't because she sort of she hasn't tried to get elected on the state level or anywhere else. That's what Hillary Clinton did.
Well, it's not necessary for her to have to do so. Her husband was a professional campaign manager, pretty much. He was an activist. He mobilized people in a local community. There are many people, for some reason or other, who love her and they like her. And I watched the response of the Obamas when Kamala Harris was tapped. There was utter silence. The last person to cash in their vote and support towards Kamala was the Obamas.
Right.
Well, there were rumors that Obama went to Biden and said Kamala Harris is going to 25th Amendment you if you don't get out of the way and endorse her. And that part of the deal, I don't know if this is true, this is just a rumor, and that part of the deal was that the Obamas would not endorse Kamala right away. They wanted to make it look more legit.
I had heard reporting, I don't know about the 25th Amendment thing, but I had heard reporting that Obama was expected, because the media noticed immediately that the Obamas hadn't signed up. The Clintons had fallen in line, everyone was all excited.
Soros.
And Obama's hadn't, and I had seen this reports go out, well, they're just waiting for Joe Biden to have his moment, and Kamala, and they're going to wait a couple weeks. And by the next day, they had endorsed her. So it does make me think there are some kind of calling in of favors happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, something sinister is going on. There's a plot. We don't quite understand it all. I believe that things will come to a head soon. I believe that Kamala Harris will lose, and then she'll begin to leak and say what's really going on and talk about it and share it. She might write a book or a memoir.
Oh, she might love that.
Oh, yeah, we'll find out everything.
I think Tim Walz gives Tim's a bad name.
I think you're right.
People are saying tampon Tim, turncoat Tim, and I'm like, hey, whoa.
Don't bring me into this.
You know, Tim's not a bad name. Don't blame Tim. Blame Tim Walz.
That's right.
Say Wacky Waltz. How about that one?
There's also reports out that in Minnesota, because the abortion laws are so extreme, like you were talking about, that there were 8 babies born as part of like abortions and then left to die.
Yeah.
That they were born alive.
Yeah, I hear that happens
In 2021 during failed abortions, and none of them were provided any care to save their lives. They were just left to die.
Wow.
I don't doubt it. And that, for the life of me, I don't understand why someone like Kamala Harris, knowing that blacks, we're not even meeting replacement numbers. It takes 2.1% of births for a population to replace themselves.
And isn't it like 34% of abortions in the U.S. are performed on black mothers?
Yes, it's true. It's even higher than that at times. Blacks make up 13% of the overall population in the U.S. Black men account for 5%. Black women account for 8%. Of the ovulating black women, they account for nearly 2 to 3% of the overall female population, but they account for nearly 38 to sometimes 40% of the overall abortions.
That's crazy.
So there's a such thing called black genocide. That's a term taken from Reverend Jesse Jackson. But Jesse Jackson, when it came time for him to run and be a Democrat president, he sold his community down a river, and he would no longer call it black genocide. And so according to Reverend Clenara Childress, by 2038, the black population rate will be at the level of Native Americans.
Oh, that's horrifying.
And so what we're witnessing right now is the self-destruction of a community while the National Black Congress supports it, while the NAACP supports it, and while many of your black activists say nothing about it. And so in the black community right now, people are looking at Kamala and saying, we don't identify with you. Because at the end of the day, you've offered us nothing. She's been relatively mute over the past 3.5 years. She's done nothing. And Barack Obama did nothing to better the black community. When she was asked what she was going to do for the black community, she couldn't name a thing. When it came time to talk about the asylum seekers and the newcomers and the dreamers and the criminal illegal aliens, she could give you a litany of things that she would do. People see what's going on, and the support that she thinks she has, she's not going to have amongst many minorities this time around.
Let's also add to the story Tim Walz establishing his snitch line for COVID mandate violators. This is from the post-millennial.
There you go.
Millennial.
Close millennial.
Post-millennial. I'll make that website. That was basically it. He set up a snitch line for people violating COVID rules. This is the perfect example of what they represent. They long for Chinese communist-style governance. This is why they choose someone like Tim Walz. And I have to wonder if the reality is maybe the reason Kamala Harris has become the default nominee, because the deep state actually has finally lost control. I'm not saying I know for sure. I'm just saying maybe. So they picked Tim Walz, not because it makes sense, but because whatever was left of the liberal economic order trying to maintain some control has lost. And now you literally just have the far left having come in and taken over. So now it's Chinese communist-style governance. Bring in the guy who's going to lock people down and snitch on your neighbors, give no policy positions, appointed by party, and that's all they have to offer.
I think it also makes sense that because Kamala was the more progressive wing of the Biden ticket, that if that's where they're starting now, they're going to look farther left, right? This is the drift they are hoping for, farther and farther down their worldview. In fact, I think there's probably no one objective in the room who can say, hey, maybe this is not the guy. Maybe we should actually appeal to moderates. Like, they can only see him through the lens of identity. They see him as a white guy who's from a more rural state. So, of course, obviously, all farmers in America are suddenly going to fall in love with this guy. And I just don't think that's true. I think that they are lost by their own framework. It's distorting their perception of this.
I think that's right.
I honestly think they should have picked Andy Bashir in Kentucky, because, again, it would be a similar argument that they're making, that he's from a southern state that's all red, that potentially could have some kind of emergence of blue influence, that it's closer to this Appalachia demographic that Vance is trying to pull, but also he's an active Christian. He has young children. And instead, I think they are just looking for everything through the lens of like older white male who won't make Kamala look too old and who has drifted more progressive, which they hope will make it seem okay that that's the way they want to take the country.
I have to wonder if it's an impossible future to predict. But it is worrying. Maybe the reality is most people don't actually fall for this. It's just the system is rigged.
They say that, like I said before, they say that vice president choice doesn't win you the election, but it can lose you the election. Like, it's not necessarily the thing that makes or breaks a ticket. For me, it just gives an insight into the kind of administration or kind of campaign that is forming around Harris, which is pushing the envelope as hard as it can and basically looking for people to comply always.
And it's just vibe. It's like a whole feels and vibes campaign.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's no policies, as
there's
we know.
no policies. There's only identity and smiling and laughing and hating Donald
videos.
Trump and and vibe. There's a lot of vibe.
So we have this story from the Post-Millennial.
Oh my
post-millennial.
Come on.
You can't stop us. Stop policing my speech.
From the Post-Millennial, Kamala's Veep pick Tim Walz gave illegal immigrants in Minnesota driver's licenses, free health care, college. And, I mean, that's basically it. There was on the 5 today on Fox News, was it Judge Jeanine Pirro, is that her name? Mm-hmm. She was like, why give illegal immigrants driver's licenses? And then that liberal person they have on the show for some reason, she's like, so they can drive to their jobs. And then Judge Jeanine was like, but, you know, what was her response?
She said, but they're not going to have car insurance. Like,
right.
Sure. Call it for the accidents.
And it's the wrong answer. The right response is illegal immigrants aren't allowed to have jobs.
Yeah, what are
They're not legally allowed to work here.
They don't have work permits. They haven't filed their I-9 forms.
You know, in our state of North Carolina, where I live, there was this battle over voter ID. And the message was, once again, that blacks are not smart enough to get a ID card in time for an election.
Didn't Kamala Harris say that most black people don't know how to use photocopy machines?
Exactly.
Did she really say that?
Yeah.
She did. Just like Governor Hochul said in New York that many black kids don't know what a computer is.
There was such a funny Instagram post from this, kid in the Bronx, this black kid in the Bronx.
Right.
It was like him chasing his computer around the room, like sniffing it. Like, what is that?
Right. Like hitting it.
Yeah, like, whoa.
I want you to know, I'm not a black kid, but I do have a laptop. Here's a black man.
Somebody call Kathy Hochul right now.
Exactly. Call her. Take a picture of this.
She's going to be like, really?
Yes, I have one. My kids have one as well. But
just breaking all kinds of norms. This doesn't happen in the state of New York.
But this is the world they actually live in. And you know why? Sure. Because Kamala Harris is who they think represents black people.
True.
Mm-hmm.
But
And she probably doesn't know what a computer is.
Well, and they think Tim Walz represents Middle East, Middle American white people, even though he's really just like the Hollywood version of that.
It's him being like, I know a black woman, and he points to Kamala, and she's like, what's a computer? And they're like, see?
We don't know.
We don't know.
So they give the license to the criminal illegal aliens, but at the same time, blacks can't obtain their own license. And so it really makes no sense. There's always some additional asterisk or hurdle that the left puts out as a means of minorities not being able to come up to the status quo.
Yep.
And so I hate it. I despise it, Tim.
Do you know what the crime rate among illegal immigrants is?
If I had to guess, 50%.
Wrong.
100%.
100%.
Because they're all here illegally.
Oh, come on, man. See, now, you all have done this before. This is a
I have heard that before.
I know it. So you're setting me up. Come on, Tim.
I tweeted it a long time ago. I said the crime rate among illegal immigrants is 100%. Because they broke the law. They're illegal immigrants. That's what it is.
You're right.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
God.
I think you're picking up on the thing that a lot of that basically mainstream media has taught us, which is like we're supposed to somehow forget that they're here illegally and just be like, they're a random person. Have they committed a crime? Like they're actively in the middle of a crime.
Right.
That's why it's so horrifying when I get the car insurance thing. It's so horrifying when there is an intoxicated illegal immigrant who doesn't have car insurance who causes a major accident or who commits some other crime because they are already illegally here. They are not supposed to be here. They're actively in the middle of a crime whilst committing another crime.
everybody really enjoyed you being like, you got me. Like, what is it? You set me up.
Oh, you set me up. I
did.
That's a smooth one. you got me, Tim.
But I'm tired of hearing this from Democrats where they're like, you'll turn on MSNBC, and this is something that I think Jack Posobiec was saying of Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon says, watch MSNBC, and you'll know what their moves are going to be. But they always say things like, the crime rate among the undocumented immigrants is actually much lower than the native-born population. And that's blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. That's the lie. They broke the law to get in here. They overstayed their visas, breaking the law. That means 100% of them have committed crimes. Now, whether or not they're committing crimes beyond that, that's a different question. Right. So the appropriate way for Democrats to say it is, after the initial crime they committed of illegally entering or overstaying their visas, their crime rate beyond that is lower than of native-born Americans. Sure, if that's the case. But that's not what they say because they're trying to lie and manipulate people. They want you to believe that it's not illegal to enter this country through outside of our ports of entry.
Sure.
Or to overstay your visa. And remember, back in the Democratic primary in 2019, the Democrats were asked, how many of you would make border entries outside of a port of entry a civil offense and not a criminal offense? They all raised their hands. Now, what is the country going to look like if anyone could just walk in whenever they want? There's no country.
No.
No, none at all. And what's amazing, Tim, is this. You know, I'm a pastor. I preach. I read the Word of God. Even the Bible speaks of building a wall. In the book of Nehemiah, that's the focus. The focus of that book is erecting a wall to protect the city. And so as I look at it today, even amongst the Christians that are out there, people of faith, you know, people who are believers, I don't understand why so many people have become duped and bought into the big lie that mass illegal immigration is the way forward for our country. Even this whole welfare state system mentality that was spurred on by and large by Lyndon B. Johnson through the Great Society, which sought to remove the black father from the home and to destroy the marriage rate. Even when you look at that, the Bible speaks to it and says that if a man doesn't work, neither shall he eat. So when you move away from just the gross ideologies of LGBTQ and the abortion topics, just towards economics and working and doing something with your life more than just waiting on a check from the government, one would see that clearly this party is doomed. It's doomed, and it's doomed, and they want to bring that doom to every doorstep in America. And if we're not careful, if we're not vigilant, if we don't fight back, then we're going to be in big trouble.
I like what you said about the wall. One of my favorite Catholic priests, I was listening to a sermon once, and he was saying, you know, heaven has gates, and so therefore it has walls. So therefore the border wall is God's law.
That's right.
And I thought that was great. I mean, I think there are things that religion teaches us because they are basic rules for society that make sense, and there are as a part of our culture that has abandoned that, and it actually leaves people without basic tools to have successful lives. And then they look around and say, why don't I have these things? Why are things so difficult? Like, we are straying from the way we're supposed to live in pursuit of what?
So why do the Democrats so often have the black vote tied up if they've been so bad for the community at large?
Because of racialized social constraint and the terrible job that many black pastors have done. There's this viral video going around of a black preacher speaking and in his congregation, and he's telling them that, hey, man, forget skin tone, forget color. We have made a God out of the LGBTQ agenda and out of blackness, you know? And that message is going viral. It's all over social media. It would probably be easy to find. But it's a video that really speaks to the heart of why we're in the mess that you just mentioned. Why are so many blacks supporting the Democrat Party? It's because, by and large, many blacks receive their talking points for politics from the pulpit, right? It's what the pastor is saying.
Really?
And if the pastor preaches a more liberal gospel, then the church just buys into it. Oftentimes, they don't fact check. They just go along with the big lie and the false narrative.
Oh, man.
You know, and it's sad, but that's by and large true, you know, and that's why some can be placed in the bucket of being a low information voter. but they're voting against things that biblically the Bible speaks, voting for things that biblically the Bible speaks against. And so when you consider that, the role of people like myself fighting, the battle every single day and trying to convince as many minorities as possible, it's a heavy burden. It's a major task. And one of the things that I am seeing that slowly but surely we're chipping away at the false narrative, but the blame should be laid at the feet of many pastors and people not taking personal accountability for gaining their own information.
I find the perversion of faith to be very sad, very sad.
True.
And I even apply this to the left, right? Because I talked to I should say many of the culture warriors of the 2010s. I was much late to the game, but in the early days, you have people like Shoe on Head, you had Carl Benjamin, of course, and they're still very much active. These are individuals who don't like bigotry and racism and hatred. And so we all come from this generation where we're like, we just want to be friends, live and let live, relatively liberal. But then the wokeness takes that and perverts it into something evil. They start segregating people based on race. They start advocating for graduation ceremonies for black people and then for white people. They set up in Dearborn, Michigan, they had the virtual cafes for POC and non-POC, they called it. They did the same thing in Seattle.
Sure.
That's the antithesis of what we were trying to do by bringing people together. Right. And then they call it anti-racism to actually advocate for segregation. That is the perversion of an ideology into its darkest form.
Right. Well, the Ibram Kendi style of anti-racism is really just true racism. It really is.
Yep.
Ibram Kendi said the best way to deal with past racism is present racism. And that is to be condescending and racist towards whites and push the narrative of critical race theory and label whites as inherently racist and blacks are victims. And, I don't go along with the whole victimhood mentality stuff. I've come in contact with good blacks and bad blacks, good whites and bad whites, and so on and so forth for any other ethnicity. But at the end of the day, I choose whether or not I'm a victim or not. I have a choice in being a victim. I choose that. And in this country where people are fighting to get in, risking their lives to get into America, you want me to believe that America today is a racist nation?
Well, that's what we're going to hear from Kamala Harris for the next 4 years. If she gets into the White House, we're going to hear about how she's oppressed.
Yeah, and
how the leader of the free world is oppressed.
It's a big lie. That is a tool to keep blacks on the liberal plantation and to keep them angry and feeling as if they have no accountability, no personal accountability in their upward mobility. When you consider a Pew Research Center study that was done in 2019, it depicted that there were 4.6 million black immigrants living in the U.S. at that time. And by 2060, that number was going to balloon maybe 5 to 10 times over that amount. And so when you consider that the number of black immigrants are steadily increasing and people are coming to this country, how come they're not getting the memo that America is a racist nation? They're not getting that memo because it's not, but people are coming to America for a land flowing with milk and honey. They want life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Consider this, if America is a racist nation, how did Barack Obama win 2 presidential elections in 2008 and in 2012? I told you earlier that blacks only make up 13% of the overall population in the U.S. So in order for a black man to win, it's going to take a lot of white people voting for him. If America is such a racist nation, then why does the median income, the highest median income owners of that level, earners rather, why does that belong to Asians? And the highest earners in America are Indians. Why does it belong to Indians and not whites? And so this whole narrative of America being a racist nation, that is a tool. It is a plan. And every 2 to 4 years, someone comes to the barbershop, comes to the beautician, goes to the local church, they campaign, and they tell black people that you can't make it in this nation. My father came to America in the 70s. All right. I'm a African American. My mother was born in the U.S. My father's from Nigeria. And he came to this country destitute. He didn't have anything. My father has started nearly 10 businesses since he's been in the U.S. There are many opportunities in this country, but the intent of the Democrat Party and the intent of Marxism is to convince people that there are no opportunities here, destroy capitalism, and socialism is the best way forward.
Larry Elder talks about this a little bit. He tells the story of his father, who he said, I think he would say his mom was a Democrat, his dad was a Republican, and they would talk about it. But his dad, and I'm not going to do justice to the stories, but left home at an extremely young age, 15, and ultimately built a successful business. I think died a millionaire, and it was this narrative that I don't know that definitely young black men, but I think a lot of young Americans are starting to believe that there's no opportunity in this country and that there is no path forward towards success. And there's then you get these studies produced by the U.S. federal government that says, hey, it turns out all of our teens are reporting high rates of hopelessness. They don't believe that there is a future. I wonder why. Yeah,
and part of that stems from the lack of humility in the culture. People are just so entitled and narcissistic, and it's me. I want. Someone give me something. I don't want to work. I don't want to put any effort. If the job is that I have to slide 2 inches to the left, that's too much. You know what I mean? If the job is I have to slide 2 inches to the right, you're asking too much of me. And so as Americans, we have become rather lazy. The American ignorance is at an all-time high. The American arrogance is at an all-time high. And we are in the midst of a terrible election. And it's imperative that people begin to understand what means the most and what's most important. The value systems that our country was founded upon are the value systems that we need more of today. The value systems of one, working with your hands, laboring and toiling and conquering and building, being an entrepreneur, and the system of capitalism. These are the things that's going to move the culture and society forward. But Democrats want to destroy that notion. They're not talking about our true freedoms and liberties. They want to remind kids in the school system that, hey, man, let's do away with the 1776. Let's go towards the 1619 project. And sadly, there are many parents who are duped as well. They don't understand what's going on. And so they've bought into the big lie, and they keep their kids in the public school system as they are being indoctrinated.
I want to jump to this story from the Daily Mail. It's a silly nonsense story that represents, I think, the problem of modern politics and falling into the trap that Democrats actually want Republicans to fall into. AOC is accused of hypocrisy after she attacked J.D. Vance for manspreading on Seat, despite being photographed doing the same herself.
I saw that.
So it's a funny story, right? AOC posts, so there's J.D. Vance, he's on the Full Send podcast, and she responds with, "Why are you sitting like that?" Someone then posted a photo of her sitting in much the same way.
See?
Why?
Well, traditionally, women are taught to cross their legs, don't sit with your crotch open.
Keep your knees together.
Keep your knees together. That whole kind of thing. But
and this became an attack against men for sitting with their legs open. And
but I mean, there's a reason why we do that, because
yes,
the way that God designed us. And I mean, maybe she's not accustomed to the kind of men who sit like that. Maybe there's a reason why. She's dealing with some soft, weak, effeminate, broken men. But that's how men sit. I mean, come on, I'm sitting like that right now on the Tim Pool show.
Why are you sitting like that?
Because
I don't need an answer.
Because I'm a man, and that's how men sit.
But here's my point. AOC decides to go the weird route.
Right.
They want to play this game weird. And she makes this post. Instantly, the right responds every time. And I always say this, stop making the news cycle what they choose the news cycle to be. Stop making the narrative of the story what they want it to be. And I'm not saying Republicans always follow the Democrats, but they tend to. Often Republicans will set the news cycle themselves, pissing the Democrats off. But in this instance, the response should be to AOC, is this what you're concerned about?
Right.
When inflation has outpaced wages for how long? Please. And you know what you need to say to AOC? You say, please, you're a member of Congress. Can you focus on wages and stop tweeting about a man's junk?
Right, and she can't. I mean, she is just representing what I think is going to be the main strategy of the Harris campaign, which is to be a middle school mean girl. She might as well have said, like, why are you wearing that tie?
Oh my
tie
God!
was
Did you
so
know that
gross.
if you wear green on Thursdays, that means you're gay?
Oh my
This is
God,
why-
exactly. Like it's
Wow.
so ridiculous. And
That was
again,
my middle school.
it has nothing to do with anything he's saying. It's to subvert to the fact that it has to be an attack on his physical appearance.
Look at what he's talking about. He's talking about sex changes for minors.
And this is her response.
And her
Amazing.
response is, "You're sitting wrong."
And the response from the right is, oh, you're sitting wrong too.
Right.
It should. I literally just be like, AOC, I don't know why he's sitting like that, but is there anything you can do about the fact that inflation has outpaced wages? I mean, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are the president. I know that the Congress is slightly Republican, but can't you do anything and then let them answer? Instead, it's, oh, look how you sit. I don't know. Look, man, with Tim Walz going up on stage, saying nothing, Kamala Harris saying nothing, and watching them all cheer for people offering nothing, and then seeing on social media the response from people on the right is to just respond with the nothing, but like, oh yeah, we're weird, you're weird. Oh, you think Trump was bad? Well, you were bad. And I'm like, how about we just say Donald Trump wants to secure our borders, unleash American energy. This is part of Agenda 47. We want cheaper energy costs. We'll make it easier for you to drive to and from work. We want to make sure that you can actually have 2 weeks of vacation, earn a better living. Inflation will be reduced. Wages will be increased. You will live a better life. These are the things we're fighting for. How are we doing it? We want less foreign intervention. We want less spending on wars like in Ukraine and in Israel and in many other places. With the Red Sea, Iran, all of these things, we want to spend less money there. That means more money for the American people. That means less inflation. And that means we're going to see more jobs focusing on the American people. With a secure border, it means there will be more availability of jobs. With better trade agreements, it means you're going to stop seeing outsourcing of jobs to foreign countries. All of those things are clearly outlined in Agenda 47. And that's what people should be saying. I have people saying, I tweeted very derisively at Democrats that they were, and I'll keep it academic for the show instead of tweeting what I actually said, X-posting, whatever. They are cognitively deficient people of ill repute. That's how I will say it on the show, because I said it much more harshly on X. And many people are like, yeah, but you can still convince some of these people to come around. I'm like, you will convince a moderate American who doesn't really pay attention, who doesn't know what's going on, by telling them, well, with the hundreds of billions we've sent to Ukraine, that's driving up inflation. It's the result of you're getting military-industrial complex manufacturing of weapons we don't need to be used in a theater of war that doesn't affect us. That's for some reason Ukraine. Most people can't even point to on a map. Why aren't our tax dollars, and to be honest, the modern monetary policies that produce wealth, why aren't they being applied to school teachers? Why aren't they being applied to infrastructure, to bridges, to roads? Why aren't we securing our border to make sure that the jobs come for our children first? And by all means, we want immigration, but it's got to be done legally, right? You tell a regular person who doesn't pay attention to that, and they're like, oh, I agree with you. And be like, okay, well, check out Agenda 47. Just read that. But if you go to them and you say AOC spread her legs, they're going to be like, huh? Because, look, Democrats want the argument to be J.D. Vance spread his legs, AOC spread her legs, because then you're not convincing anybody. Then Democrats, or I should say,
always answering,
default liberals who are emotional are not hearing anything other than if I am, then so are you, or whatever. If you're, whatever.
Sure.
So how about instead of arguing when they say JD Vance is weird, you go AOC's weird, and then you get a default lib being like, I don't know, everyone's weird, I guess. You say, oh, JD Vance may be weird. Well, his policy will make your gas cheaper. Then they'll be like, okay, well, that's fine, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I think it should be, the response should always be go back to messaging, because again, this is something that the Harris campaign does not have. They do not have a platform out, and she basically serves up a long-winded filibuster whenever asked a direct question. I think that it's a mistake to try and, it doesn't bother me when people online will be like, they say, J.D. Vance is weird, but you're the party of drag queens and changing kids' gender or whatever. But I do think that ultimately the response should always be to go back to what they can do to serve the American people, because Kamala Harris can't say any of that. Walz can't say any of that. And it would just be better, because by the end of it, people will be able to say, well, this is what the Trump-Vance campaign is promising, and I actually don't know what the Harris-Walz campaign is promising, because all they did was talk about the other side constantly.
Yeah, no one knows. No one knows what she stands
I
for
think
or what they want.
them especially, the Harris-Walz campaign doesn't know what they stand for.
Like, I just opened Twitter right now, and what do I see? Tim Walz put tampons in the boys' room. And I'm like, okay, I guess. But I feel like things like that, regular people don't understand. They don't understand. The books, I get. You show someone that book, and you can really make them start questioning what they're being told.
Sure.
When Bill Maher was presented by, when Dennis Prager presented the tampons in the men's room to Bill Maher, he just went, get out. He said, that's for their girlfriends. Get out of here. And Dennis Prager could not get through to him because Bill Maher has no idea what you're talking about. But if Dennis Prager, sitting with Bill Maher, said, and this is, the previous administration, but let's say right now, you're having a conversation with a liberal and you said, did you know that inflation under the Biden administration, Biden-Kamala, has been higher than wages? So people have actually been losing the ability to buy products.
Wow.
Fact check that. And then what's the response? Okay, so what should we do? Well, I don't know, but I'll tell you this. Kamala Harris, 4 more years of the same policy ain't going to be good for the American people. We can start there. If you want to argue that doesn't mean Trump is the right choice for the president, I'm fine with that. But you got to tell me what you want from Kamala Harris. And the answer is they don't have an answer.
Right. Liz Wheeler had a post today on X about how the murder rate has gone up dramatically in Minnesota under Walz. And I think that's sort of what we should go back to.
They defunded police in Minneapolis.
Defunded police. And the thing is, what are the problems facing American voters? And that's why I think the Trump campaign did so well, especially in the first debate, being like, we are going to talk about the economy, we are going to talk about immigration and the effects of that, both culturally and the crime rate, because these are things that people talk about at their kitchen table. They need to be able to safely send their kids out into the world, and they also need to be able to bring home food and resources to raise their families. If this is the issue, that's all we should talk about. I don't want to hear, you did this or you sat wrong or you whatever. I want to hear how you're going to fix these issues. And I think, again, the campaign that's formed in the last 2 weeks for Kamala Harris is really about being on the offense, but not on offense meaning they are proactively trying to solve solutions for American people. It's just trying to attack and bring down the other side. And I think Americans are honestly sick of that. They have real issues.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about, I saw this video on TikTok a while ago where a dad was showing the groceries. He's like, I got 2 little girls. Here's the groceries that I just bought. He's like, $100 and something bucks barely covers our meals for the week.
Right.
3-4 years ago, it was way more than this. That guy, you assume there's a lot of people like that. Middle of the road, suburban, especially suburban women. That's what they're thinking about. I think if Republicans focus on that, my attitude is this. If I were to do a debate with someone like Kamala Harris and then she said something like, they're just plain weird, I'd just be like, I don't know what that means, guys. I'm tired. And I mean this genuinely. I literally mean it. I'm tired. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what they want to do. Can we just get cheaper gas? Can we just get your electric bill down? Can we get your water bill down? Can we increase your wages? Can we find better jobs? Can we create opportunity for your family? Can we just fix these things? I don't know what it means to be weird. I just want this country to be better for everybody because I want my family to live better. I want my friends to live better. I want everybody listening to live better. And all I hear from Democrats, from Kamala Harris, from Joe Biden is garbled nonsense. Joe Biden says he cured the economy. I don't know what that means. People are suffering. The economy is not going well for people right now. Food is through the roof, and it's just inflation has been terrible. Now the jobs report comes out, things get bad, then the market crashes. Call me weird. I don't care. I just want the market to improve for people's 401ks and for their kids to be able to go to school and for people to eat bread.
Me and my friend today, we were swapping photos of receipts, like literally. She was like, this is what I had to spend for my 2 oldest for school. And I was like, well, I just got the one, but this is what I had to spend. And then we started comparing grocery bills. And I was like, she has 4 kids and I have 1. But
is she in New York or?
No, she's in Texas. But we were talking about it and we were just going back and forth and we were like horrified at these prices.
You're probably doing this too. You've got 3 kids.
Yeah, I am. And when you look at the grocery bill, when you look at the cost of school supplies and you look at those things, you say to yourself, man, the products haven't changed. Wood is wood, paper is paper.
Might even be worse.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, but
now it's made out of plastic bottles instead of cotton.
true. You know, it's evident that, you know, sometimes we can get into the weeds. You know, I've been guilty of that myself, because when you're fighting someone that's looking at you and calling you insane, but you can look at them and see, no, you are crazy. You are insane yourself. It's natural to want to retaliate. You know, maybe we should do more of turning the other cheek, you know, but you're so right. When we get back to the issues, they can't defend their record.
And I think the attitude is more like the successful attitude is more exasperation than indignation. I feel like, you know, when I talk to my friends and family and they say things like, well, you know, well, Trump did this, I'm just like, I don't care. I'm honestly super tired of your guy is weirder than our guy and all that stuff. All I can tell you is 2019 was great. I mean, wages were going great. Unemployment was way down. People were making money. I remember, I tell the story, when we were setting up the first studio for Timcast IRL, I went to a Bob's Discount Furniture because we needed a table and we needed chairs. And the saleswoman said, I have never made more money in my life. She was so happy. She's like, this year has been a windfall for me. It's been incredible. And I'm like, I'm glad to hear it. I was like, I'm able to come in here and buy all this furniture for our new show because my show's been successful and we're expanding. And she's like, isn't it great? Then we get a landscaper. We get a guy to do, I don't know if landscaper is the right word, but he was laying concrete and a contractor. And I'm talking to him and he's like, I got to tell you, man, 2019 was the best year for my business I've ever had in my life. He's like, we got more jobs. We hired a bunch of people. And I'm like, this is awesome. Little did we know what was going to happen in a couple of months. Yes. I don't blame Trump for COVID. I don't blame Joe Biden for COVID. We can criticize individual policies that they did during the COVID lockdowns, and we can criticize the governors during this time. But I'm just going to shrug and say, I don't know, it's a pandemic. What I can tell you is Donald Trump was weighted down in his first term with being accused of being a Russian spy and all this nonsense, and we still had a great economy, still had great. And then as soon as Joe Biden gets in, mind you, COVID, I'll say fine, but we're 2024 right now, and things are bad. There's no excuse at this point, 4 years from COVID. And we're talking nearly 4 years. We're almost 4 years into the Biden-Kamala administration, the Biden-Harris, and we've only seen things get worse economically for people. At this point, I think it's fair to say, by year 3, Trump had improved the economy dramatically for most people, and by year 3, the Biden-Harris administration hasn't done much at all in this regard, and we're wondering where the answers are. So I think it's fine when we get involved in culture war issues. I do all the time. Sure. Those are fine. I'm just saying when Tim Walz goes up on stage and says, J.D. Vance is weird and he's on the couch, and everyone starts saying, you're weird, you're on the couch. I'm just like, dude, just ask them where wages are. Right. You know, like, this is not they're on stage advocating for votes. Ask them where gas prices are. Ask them where energy prices are. Kamala Harris's website has no policies on it. I really just want to know what she wants to do. You know what I mean? Give me a reason to actually defend Kamala Harris. They don't have one. They don't. They say Trump is a crackpot or whatever. And I'm just like, bro, if you put on your website, if Kamala Harris had on her website that she wanted to get rid of ATM fees, overdraft fees for working class people, I'd say, well, she's right about that, because I defended Joe Biden on that one. I think overdraft fees exploit poor Americans. I think they're stupid. And there's challenges there, I get it, but I could at least, they've given me nothing to agree with. So I hope she's a throwaway candidate, because Agenda 47 is an actual plan that Trump has laid out for how he wants to improve the economy and make America better. So I'm just, after I watched, I've been ready for this rant, because after I watched Kamala Harris and Tim Walz on that stage, I was just drained, like my soul had been ripped from my body.
It was awful to watch.
I'm just like, I'm so tired of this. And then the response on social media was this culture war fervor of calling Kamala weird and tampon Tim and all this stuff. And I'm like, I just want to know how I'm going to pay the bills. I want to know how eggs are going to go down, how bacon's going to go down, how milk is going to go down, or at the very least, wages are going to go up. That's what I want to know. Mm-hmm. And so we don't need to tweet. Look, people, don't listen to me. Tweet whatever you want to tweet at whoever you want to tweet about. I'm just tired of nothing. I'm tired of them not offering anything. I know Trump is, and I wish there were other candidates that were offering more. The Libertarian Party ain't offering anything.
Nope.
RFK Jr., he's got a strong advocacy in environmental toxins. I can appreciate that. He's kind of a wacky dude, but he sounds fun. So I don't know, whatever.
To your point, The U.S. Home Price Index has gone up 47% since Joe Biden's inauguration, and rent prices nationwide have risen 26%. Under Trump, the average mortgage rate was 2.7%, but under Joe Biden, it's 7.22%.
Yeah.
And so people are hurting.
So let's take this conversation to the most extreme end that we possibly can, because we haven't done one in a long time. Civil war. So we have this story from MSN.com. U.S. Civil War concerns on the rise, according to study. We've actually had a bunch of stories bubbling up over Civil War, and we periodically do talk about this. We have this article. This is fairly old, however, but I bring this up because we have from CBS News: attempted assassination of Donald Trump spurred a huge spike in calls for violence and civil war online. This, of course, is from today. And then this story about the U.S. Civil War concerns on the rise, according to study. So my concern is when we're looking at Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, with no policy positions, and you have, according to polls and the prediction markets, Kamala Harris is on track to win. The prediction markets say she's going to win the swing states. I'm sorry, the betting markets. And the polls say that she's going to win as well. She's ahead in the general. What happens when half the population of a country does not care at all about policies, laws, and plans? They care only to hate the other side.
Well, and their feelings. They care about their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
They hate.
Yeah.
They hate Trump. They don't care what he stands for. They don't care what he's done. They hate Trump's supporters. They don't care what they stand for. They don't care what they've done. Mm-hmm. They're not going to give you any real answers. They're going to say whatever they can to maintain the facade that they are right and the people they hate are wrong. And so one thing I will say about the CBS News article is they are wrong. No one's calling. Well, people are calling for violence for sure. The left, in response to Trump's near assassination.
I was going to say all of those riots that broke off after the attempted assassination of Trump. Oh, wait, there weren't any.
Right. But
no
one's calling for civil war in general. What's happening is people are saying they fear a civil war because of what's happening.
But they fear a civil war that from people who don't go out and protest, which is really the weird thing. Like, the only reason that they can keep slamming January 6th is because that's the last time conservatives went out to protest. And it was the first time in a long time as well. Conservatives went out to protest.
Only time.
Yeah, I mean, conservatives went out to protest in the early days of COVID with the lockdowns when their businesses were getting closed and they couldn't make payroll. And then they went out to protest on January 6th. So it was interesting. Recently, Trump was asked about, January 6th attack on the Capitol. And he said, there was an attack on the Capitol last week. They vandalized all these statues. They refused to clear out. They were being violent and fighting with cops or whatever else.
Yep.
And why aren't you guys covering that? And they don't cover that because the Democrats just always go out and protest and are violent thugs and whatever else. Like the Antifa journalist who was arrested for anti-Semitic graffiti against the board members of the Brooklyn Museum. And of course, the Brooklyn Museum is where there were 10,000 Black Trans Lives activists in June 2020 standing out there, demanding whatever, that they not be checked and that they not be COVID tested, and saying that they get to be out there because this is a public health crisis and all of the other stuff.
We talked about this the other night with Nick Freitas. And this is, I believe it was mostly on the members only portion, because someone asked us what would happen to foreign military bases in the event of a civil war if it did happen.
That was a fascinating question.
And of course, as soon as you mentioned that, Nick, who actually has real military experience, special forces, he has, I would argue, more correct opinions than I would as someone who just reads the news. Of course, I still have my opinions. So we both kind of got into it and entertained the possibilities. I think the bigger question is the conversation around civil war. People like to say, when I did that, I forgot what the show was called. It was, what was it, Face Off or something? I don't know. Michael Knowles and I did a quiz show on Civil War, and they said I have the world record for saying the word Civil War the most times on a podcast, and it's good. But the reality is, the media talks about it quite a bit all the time, and we on this show, we don't bring up every instance of when the media says Civil War is coming. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was like, it's been a long time. Why don't we pull this up? But following the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, it was trending on X. People saying that we were millimeters away from a civil war. So my concern now is looking at how I'm watching the speech from Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and people are behind her just cheering and nodding and going, yes, yes, as she says nothing.
No, nothing.
In the event that she does win, and the policies they begin to enact are, I don't know, like World War III-esque policies, are red states just going to go along with and agree with this stuff, especially when it's become overtly illogical, or more importantly, when we begin to see things like Oklahoma, for instance, banning abortion, and Colorado unrestricting it to the point of birth, like these hyper-polarized worldviews on policy. When Kamala Harris signs an executive order saying abortion is now legal to the point of birth, and she cites some dubious justification for it, then Planned Parenthood tries operating in a red state that's banned abortion, what happens? Does the state government then come in? Do the feds come in and intervene? I'm not saying I know for sure Kamala Harris will try to do anything like that, but I think it's likely.
Well, you've
Look
already
at DACA.
seen, and you've already seen the Fed coming in to intervene in states that have restricted abortion, access, and that have restricted transitioning children and other things like that. You've seen the DOJ going after those states and bringing suit. That's why it was so interesting. I think it was in June that there was a report out saying that the Harris-Biden administration, as I'm now going to call it because it's clear that Kamala was never in charge, you could see they came out and said that they were opposed to sex changes for minors. But at the same time as they said they were opposed to sex changes for minors, they are literally suing the state of Tennessee for banning sex changes for minors. So what is it that you really think there, Harris-Biden? And while you're at it, what is a woman? Miss Kamala Harris.
I because you brought it up, I do need to give a shout out to George Alexopoulos at GPrime85. You guys should follow him on Instagram and X because he made this comment he made this comic a long time ago. It's a real quote from Joe Biden. He said, "It is estimated that 200 million people will die by the time I finish this talk." He actually said that. I think what he meant to say was too many people will have died. But you'll notice the sign in front of him says Harris Biden. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that, instantly reminded me of this. Now, shout out to GPrime85 because for those that aren't watching, I'm going to describe it to you. So he literally did say this. Okay, he meant to say will have died, not will die. And then in the comic, the next panel is him with glowing red eyes saying, "And that time," and the next one he says is now, and then he blasts lightning out of his hand and is vaporizing a crowd of people in front of him with lightning powers. And it's just we had this hanging up in the other studio. It's one of my favorite comics he's made. But this is back in 2020, and it says Harris Biden, and it also says Valar Morghulis.
Amazing. Do you think that we're already at civil war?
Civil strife.
Civil strife?
Yeah, so, and it's funny because I only learned this a couple of years ago. I've talked about the fear of a civil war for a long time. And the error I've probably made is saying, we're in a cold civil war, we're in some kind of civil war. And then when I spoke with Stephen Marsh, who's a journalist, he's a bit of a lefty guy. But we basically agree on most of these things. Now, he thinks the right is fomenting civil war, which is silly nonsense because they don't do anything. However, he brought up the concept of civil strife to me. And he said this is a period pre-Civil War that is defined by political tumult, violence, etc. And academics across the aisle do believe that today we are in civil strife. There have been many periods of civil strife that have not led to civil war, but this is the period before a civil war begins. So if Donald Trump gets elected and then has some minor reforms, some people get arrested, everyone starts calming down. He gets rid of wokeness he makes it illegal basically to discriminate on the basis of race at the federal level. Like he actually did this in his first term. And then Democrats are in disarray. If we get 2 more terms of a conservative anti-woke president and industries start realigning, you avert a civil war. However, if Trump or Kamala wins and both sides just continue the hyperpolarization, then I don't see how it's avoided. Right. So just to go back to 1861, not that I think this represents where we currently are today, but, history rhymes. You have Bleeding Kansas, this period for 7 years, I believe it was, starting in the 1850s, where Kansas as a new territory, there was fights between people who wanted a free state or a slave state, literally murdering each other. John Brown famously was there with his kids, and he straight up just killing people. The Civil War starts, and no one really talks about Kansas at all. No one cares about what happened. Like, do we even know? I mean, if you read the history books, it's amazing to be like, dude, there were battles. People were killing each other in this place. And so I don't know exactly how we get something similar this time around because of the way states are. But what I do see as interesting is the violence and the tumult was there. Of the states that seceded from the Union, Abraham Lincoln got not a single vote. Of the original states, of the 7 original states that seceded from the Union, there was not a single vote cast for Abraham Lincoln because the South said that, they feared he was going to abolish slavery. His official position was to stop its expansion, but they thought that was BS. So that means, there was a period where in this country, before a secession happened, states already rejected the president. Not a single vote cast for them. Ballots weren't issued. Ballots were issued by parties privately, but no, the Republicans didn't operate in any of these states. They thought it was pointless. And so with that violence and with that level of hatred towards the president, Abraham Lincoln gets elected. And then before he's inaugurated, it was in March back then, not January, because they changed it, 7 states secede from the Union. I don't know that we would see something like that happen today because the alignment is different. That being said, it's possible that Trump gets elected, and then in December, there's a constitutional crisis, which results in several blue states arguing that they will not abide by executive action or orders under Donald Trump. Donald Trump gets into office and then signs executive orders, which they defy, and then start acting as independent agents, essentially, which you look at what's happening in Texas with the Biden CBP versus Texas State Guard. Imagine that under Donald Trump. Texas is going to be more reserved. They're conservative, so things kind of go to standstill. But what happens when Democrats just say, we will do whatever we want with impunity, and then Donald Trump has to counter that? I think the evidence suggests that Donald Trump will do nothing based on what we saw in his first term. So it may just be then that the federal government effectively collapses. So I'll put it this way. In a scenario where Trump wins and blue states begin to defy federal authority, in the event that Trump does nothing and just says, well, the states won't listen, then the federal government is just basically gone. And so you're opening up the door to, with weakened federal authority, not necessarily a civil war, but regional dissolution of the United States, similar to the Soviet Union.
And everyone claiming that they're a sanctuary state and immune from federal regulation. And
that's just it. I mean, when California starts letting in infinite, just unlimited illegal immigrants because they want to, right. And then Congress, when we do the census and then figure out how many congressional seats are in California, but California's like, we no longer abide by federal authority. So, however, we're going to send people to Congress to influence other states. You're going to have a major constitutional crisis. In the scenario where Donald Trump says, iron fist time, we're invoking the Insurrection Act and calling upon the National Guards of surrounding states to stop the crimes committed by California, well, then California either resists or doesn't. Then you might have occupation, the federal government occupying California to stop the illegal immigration, or you get resistance, and which is the beginning of civil war. No idea.
So instead of civil war, we're at civil strife right now.
Right.
Strife. And I asked that question because when you consider the record of Tim Walz, he passed laws in his state where if a parent doesn't trans their kid, the state can take the child from the parent. Could it be that we are seeing a neo-style of civil war, whereas there are no physical casualties at this moment?
There are.
And who?
Aaron Danielson was shot twice in the chest by Michael Reinhold in Portland. Walking down the street, right. Reinhold with the BLM the communist fist just shot him twice in the chest.
So we're at
30 plus people died.
We're at civil war then?
Civil strife includes political violence.
Okay.
So Bleeding Kansas, for instance, John Brown walks up to a guy and just shot him in the face. Him and his kids were going around and they were just God's mandate, slavery must be ended. They didn't care and they were going to use violence to get it. And no surprise, the guy was hanged for treason, for deciding that he would use murder to get his way. And civil war, man, I mean, especially with the issue of slavery, you get to this point where there's no real easy way to defend any of this.
Right.
Like, am I going to defend a guy who decided to take it upon himself just to go murder someone? That being said, the guy was a slave owner, right? The moral questions are challenging. I usually default to don't be violent. That's where we are right now in this country and where we want to be, because we don't want this devolving into something substantially worse. But you mentioned the transing of the kids. I said this, I thought abortion might be a catalyst for civil war, because the scenario I imagined is like, A man and a woman get pregnant in Oklahoma. After 6 months, the woman is like, this guy is not right for me. I can't be with him for whatever reason. And so in the middle of the night, she packs her stuff and she flees to Colorado for an abortion. The man...
6 months?
At 6 months. Well, yeah. Colorado has abortion at the point
Colorado
of
will
birth.
do it, but it's just so horrifying.
Right. And so imagine she's saying to herself, if I have this kid, I'm trapped with this man for the rest of my life, and he's the wrong guy. He's bad. He's a bad guy. So then what happens when that guy wakes up and says, where's my wife? Searches around, she's gone. And he's like, that's my child. And at 6 months, he's viable. She doesn't need to kill him. And so he calls her, where are you? And she's like, I'm leaving you and I'm going to Colorado. I'm going to get an abortion. And he begs her, please, please, I will never see you again, but don't kill my child. And so then he calls the state. The state says she's attempting to commit a crime because Oklahoma has banned this. And she's currently actively fleeing to Colorado. Colorado lets her in and says sanctuary, she can get the abortion. Now you've got a very serious dispute. I don't know that this would actually be the case because unborn babies can't defend themselves.
True.
One of the issues of the Civil War is that slaves were trying to escape and they were fighting for their freedom, which was so long as there were independent human beings with their own volition to fight for their freedom, you had a fighting force that was always going to exist. Babies aren't going to do that. But I wonder about the parents of children who are being kidnapped and sterilized, because you've got Washington, Minnesota. A lot of these states are passing
California.
they're passing these laws where a third party,
Massachusetts, New York.
I think it was Washington, where they said a third party could take a child to get sterilized and they would not prosecute the third party. So a groomer online can tell a kid, get on the bus and come here and we'll get you everything you need, and the state will not hold them accountable. That's the issue where the actual fighting force would be the parents of the child who want to see that kid protected. Again, I don't actually know that that's a catalyst either. It seems like what we're looking at is more like Spain or Russia with tribal hatred. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what the issue is. It doesn't matter what the moral cause is. The Democrats just hate Donald Trump. They hate his supporters. It doesn't matter what the policies are. They will vote for hatred and nothing else. And that is a person that can't be reasoned with. And that's what I fear would actually kick off more violence. Like, why did Michael Reinold kill Aaron Danielson? Literally no reason.
But it's not just hatred of Trump or his supporters. It's hatred of America and what America stands for, and it's hatred of our freedoms. It's hatred for the idea that all Americans get to have the same rights and freedoms, and that we all get to have our free speech. We all get to have our free religion. You know, they hate that. They don't want Christians to be able to practice in their actual Christian faith. They want, you know, like Pastor John was saying over here, they want the dumbed down version of Christianity, the far left progressive version of Christianity that encourages abortion and transing and all of this ludicrous stuff.
And you see things fall apart over this. I mean, think of the United Methodist Church, right? They are fracturing in huge numbers because...
True.
And the Episcopalians are having trouble.
Oh, don't get me started on the Episcopalian Church. They've really done me wrong here. But it's really, I mean, it's bad.
But I would say mostly yes. There are, when you look at the left, you'll meet someone and they hate Jews. Mm-hmm. They don't care about Christianity or whatever. Their sole focus is one thing. Then you meet people who hate cis heteronormativity or whatever. On the surface, it's just a group of people who hate. And that's what unifies them. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump, he's like, we want cheaper energy. That's like his first policy position on Agenda 47 is unleash American energy. That's not a policy of hatred. Wanting legal immigration is not a policy of hatred. But the Democrats project everything onto the Republicans, and they're literally just saying, we have no policies and we don't care. And so I'll beg any one of these Democrats to tell me what their policy positions are and what they're voting for. And they're going to tell you something nonsense like Donald Trump's a threat to democracy. We can worry about policy and campaigning when the threat to democracy is averted. That's what they'll say.
Yeah, I think you're right. And part of it is if you then said, well, what is the threat to democracy? Could you define that for me? Where is
Trump's a fascist.
Right. They just will hit you with these slogans that they've picked up from whoever. There's no actual explanation. I also don't think you could ask them to talk positively. Like, what are your goals for America? What's something you want us to accomplish? They can only speak in the negative. And that speaks to our culture, which I don't like. I'm fearful of that culture.
Which further proves that they are Marxists.
Yep.
The focus is always chaos and division and disunity. Something's wrong. The country is evil. You know, Trump comes out and says that I want to make America great. Then you have a group of people saying that America's always been great. Or what does that mean?
Or was never great.
Or never great. Or who is it going to be great for? Is it going to be great for whites? Or is it going to be great for blacks? All this stuff. And so you're right to that point.
All right, let's jump to super chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends, head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member. Why? Oh boy, if you guys look at the super chats in the chat, you'll notice everybody saying, why can't I find the episode? The episode's not available on YouTube. It took me 20 minutes to find the episode. I'm telling you. I will say, I think they unshadow banned my morning show. I had a feeling this was going to happen because YouTube.com/Timcast, which is the Culture War Clips channel. And I'm probably going to post cultural stuff there now as well, which is like talking about video games and things like that. That channel, Timcast News and IRL, were all banned from Google. You could not search for it. And then one day on the show, I pointed this out. And then all of a sudden people were like, yo, your videos just popped back up on Google right away. Like someone at Google is watching and they went, oh crap. And they went and took it off because they're like, yeah, we were doing it. And
but now they have to do shadow ban this one. You can only have one thing on shadow ban.
Right. But last week I mentioned that Timcast News, which is the morning show, subscribe. Everybody go to youtube.com/Timcast News and subscribe. 10 a.m. to noon is the live morning show. It's just hosted by me. And I mentioned that you could not Google search it. And I just searched it and it popped up. And I'm like, And I want to mention this to you guys. Become a member at timcast.com. Yo, we were heavily shadow banned for 40 minutes when the show started. And here's what I think happened. Because I can actually see in the analytics. Actually, I wonder if I can do this in the hard analytics. So there is a spike. I don't know, Serge can see it. He's over there nodding. You can see the point at which the shadow ban was lifted, which is really interesting. And it looks like reinstated and then lifted again. Very, very weird, the numbers. I think what happened was they shadow banned the show and everybody went to go find the show. We ended up with like 35,000 concurrent viewers despite YouTube shadow banning us from the front page.
Wow.
At that point, it just got released, and all of a sudden, the views started to normalize. And that's when, because I was checking when people were saying it, IRL started to appear back on the front page of YouTube for those who subscribe to it. I wonder if they realized, like, hey, guys, the shadow ban didn't work. People still went to look for the show because they wanted to watch it. Mm-hmm. So you guys rock. 35,000, despite the fact that you couldn't find the show unless you sought it out, 35,000 people still went. And then we ended up with 42,000 peak. Actually, I think the number is, 42,000, rounding up, 41,848 peak concurrence. I thought it was higher than 40. I thought it was 42 or something. So keep trying, but I really do appreciate that everybody watches the show and that the censorship isn't working, though the show succeeds in spite of their attempts to shut us down. But what were your super chats now? And don't forget, we're going to have that members-only uncensored call-in show. Going to be a little not so family friendly, as it were, especially with the books that we got here and the story that we have out of Ohio. So that'll be for the members only show at 10. All right, we got Dalamar who says, no commies, please. Vote Republican or Libertarian. Yeah, but Chase Oliver is a commie, isn't he? Well, he's a cult libertarian. Like, he says the libertarian things, but he's definitely in the cult.
I think the big point for that comment would be vote down ticket, right? It happens so often where like small town mayors are suddenly communist or like people on your school board. If you have a libertarian candidate on a local level or Republican, whatever, definitely check them out because, I don't really know what the left is fielding in your town.
All right. C Cowboy says, commies got me burdened by what is to become. I agree.
Yeah, definitely burdened right now, not unburdened at all.
All right, Big Cheese says, Walz sat and watched my city burn. My family hid in the basement armed, hoping and praying that the riots would stop. He failed Minneapolis. He failed this whole state,
Did you see that a lot of left-wing outlets are crediting him with the weird thing? They're saying he's the one who came up with the weird thing, which I don't buy at all.
I don't. Benjamin88 says, okay, third time's a charm. Could I get thoughts on the bill Lindsey Graham put forth to go to war with Iran? That's, Resolution 106? I think we had this pulled up the other day, but we didn't end up talking about it. So I'm not sure. You want to pull that up and we'll see what it is? Yeah. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says 47 months. Hell's bells. I was worried for a sec if it was Shapiro, but I don't think the people are ready for a far left admin. Normies ain't about it. And shout out to Raymond G. Stanley Jr. He was the most prolific super chatter, and he works here now. And he's one of the most helpful guys. No disrespect to the other Timcast employees, but Raymond G. Stanley Jr. is always on top of things, and he's getting everything done and making this place run like a well-oiled machine. So we are eternally grateful, Raymond. And we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here. All right. Justin Hutter says, wait. Day 10 asking Timcast. I should just not read this so you keep super chatting.
Did you see that?
Day 12.
Cori Bush lost her primary.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
What, just now?
Yeah. Just now.
We got to pull that up in a second.
Yep.
Day 10 asking Timcast IRL to bring on the
It is
Cartier
sweet.
family.
She's
Their political
awful.
journey as young men help steer the culture war. Sincerely a fan of both shows. Okay, I got to pull up the court. That just happened.
Yeah.
The thing that I
Cori
found
Bush,
on the
wow.
Lindsey Graham resolution, there's this quote from Jewish Insider says, Graham said that the authorization for use of military force would, quote, be triggered if the president determines that Iran possesses uranium that is enriched to the weapons grade level, a nuclear warhead, or were to possess a delivery vehicle capable of delivering a nuclear device against Israel or any of the other allies or the United States.
Okay, I don't know that they didn't call it yet.
They didn't.
So I've got New York Times.
They have 18% of votes in.
18% of votes in, and I don't think they've called the race.
I don't think so. Oh, they didn't call it. Other
Right.
people are calling it on Twitter. Kim Klacik called it.
Okay, well, okay, you get my hopes up. Not that I know anything about Wesley Bell. Is he better?
He's a prosecutor. He's a St. Louis prosecutor, so I'm sure he also
a little better.
But he might
Right.
be slightly better.
So 18% of votes are in. Cori Bush is at 33.1% to Wesley Bell's 63.8. But that is,
It's a lot. She's
That-
down by half.
Ooh.
well, it's 2-1.
Yeah.
I think it might be. Look, if the AP could call it, they'd call it, and they call things early when they
Yeah,
can.
they do. They do.
So if they haven't called it yet, I'm not going to say, but we will track this. In the meantime, we will watch your super chats. And this is the second. Who was the other? Did Rashida Tlaib? No, who was it?
School Hall Jamal.
Yes,
Bowman.
Jamal Bowman.
You got
He lost.
pull the
He lost.
fire alarm.
Yeah.
School Hall Jamal is his name.
It looks like
School
Andrew
Hall
Bailey, the Missouri Attorney General's
That's
up
what I
in his
call it.
primary too.
Here we go. Jason Dixon says, Tim, I wasn't able to find you today. I'm a 4+ year member. Please shout out the Discord. The mods appreciate the shout outs, building great culture. And shout out to Jason Dixon. Thank you for being a member for so long. You're one of the best members. Not to
Really picking favorites here today.
Not to disparage any of the other members, but Jason often super chats in promotion of the Discord and everything people on the Discord are doing. So that's why I say shout out. If you go to timcast.com and click join us to become a member, we have a Discord server with a bunch of different rooms. There's workshops. There's shows. People in the Discord hosting shows and conversations. And then when we do the members only show at 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday, there's an after show. So we actually bring in members to talk to us on the show and join us in our guest. And then afterwards, the Discord continues the conversation. It is based AF. And you guys should really join. You should really join.
You know, Tim, I do want to thank your audience and your support and everyone. Earlier this year, Kirk Cameron was pushing for his new show, and you all wrote a generous check to him.
That was fun.
For $42,000. That was amazing, but he has nearly placed a full season in the can.
Awesome.
And they're at about 90% towards their funding goal. And things are just going amazing. And so they're pushing strong. And so the series on Iggy is getting ready to come out. The Adventures of Iggy will come out soon. And so just wanted to thank you and your audience for that. And then also on August 24th, we're going to have a See You at the Library Day. The location will be released here soon, but everyone can go to bravebooks.com and to hear more about that at that location.
And they gave me a Muppet. I'll pull it up for you guys.
Oh yeah, do it.
Oh my gosh.
We'll play the video.
It was really disconcerting to have this puppet here on the table one night and you're looking at both Tims.
So where is that stupid video? Wait, I can't find it. Where did it go?
Why?
Hey.
Yeah.
Have you seen it? I think it's in the
I haven't
sneak
seen it
arc.
yet.
I'll have to find
Oh
it.
wait, it's not popping up.
Yeah.
Do I gotta click Reels or something?
Why are you looking for it?
We made Oh, did they take it down? Oh, there it is. There it is. I was just looking in the wrong spot. So it's this. Here you
No
go.
way.
Didn't stick the landing there, Tim.
So Jack Posobiec brought a Muppet Me
Come on, man.
and then and a Brave Book skateboard.
No way.
Yeah, they made this for me, and I really do appreciate it. So shout out Jack and Brave Books. And so then Richie thought it was hilarious and started messing around with it. And then we were like, let's have it drop in on the death wall. And that was a good fun. All right, we'll go back to reading your super chats and then tracking. Where's the tracking the results of Cory Bush's Democratic primary? All right, Joshua Schaefer says, are you keeping Mr. Bokus Pumpkin Spice Experience around for a bit? My girlfriend is currently 8 months pregnant with our son, but wants to try some once he's out. Also make America innovative again. Go to Casper.com. We accidentally ordered extra because we're planning on retiring it because Mr. Bokus passed. And then we're making the new memorial focus with Mr. Bokus, which will be our espresso roast. So I just recommend you get it now because I don't know how much is left. I think it says how much is left.
She's 8 months pregnant. You could order it now and it would be fine, right? I don't know how long coffee lasts.
It lasts longer than that. You're good. Vacuum
Especially
sealed
if
bag.
you get the whole bean.
Yeah.
You just ground it yourself. You'll be good.
Vacuum bags.
What a fun push present. Great.
Matt P. Yeah. Matt P. says, hi, Tim, new member, former Marxist-Leninist Maoist. Your show and guests you've had have pulled me back from the brink. Also, I think saying Harris Waltz installed 24 is a good play on words so that Harris was installed. Well, shout out, Matt. You seem to be a critical thinker, and I appreciate your perspective, and I appreciate you having an open mind. And, I'll say this, too, because we argue with the chat. We'll argue with members, and it's not, or I should say debate and have discussions. We've had callers come in and say, Tim, you're wrong about this, and then I'll argue with them. And I'm glad those members are here because we don't want to be an echo chamber. That's always been the case. You had people be like, why is Ian on the show? Well, when Ian is on the show, because we want someone to have their own views and not just be an echo chamber of, vanilla yogurt. Everyone agrees with each other. We'd love to have liberals come on the show. They just won't do it. They don't want to come on the show. The only ones that do are the stupid grifter ones, like 2 people always begging to come on the show. And I'm like, no, dude, we're not doing WWE. But, However, that being said, we are actively pursuing any and all for the Culture War podcast, which is a better format. Because I'd love to have Kyle Kalinske on this show as we go through the news stories. That'd be fantastic. And he said he'd come on before, but we never able to book him. And, to be fair, he hosts his own show. So it's fair that he doesn't come on the show. He's like, hey, I'm busy. I have a show. I'm like, oh, I get it. I'm not going to cancel my show to go on his. You know what I mean? But he's one of my favorites, so I'd love to have him on as well. I think it'd be really interesting going through the news with him here, because this is the thing about this show. When I have people say like, "Oh, Tim's far right," I'll be like, "Well, we just pull up the New York Times and MSN.com and the Post Millennial." Okay, rag on the Post Millennial.
Oh, come on.
Post millennial.
Post Millennial.
Come on.
Post millennial.
No, but I mean, like, it's not like the Post Millennial is just making things up. It's all sourced news. Like,
We often source the New York Times.
Right. It's like, so tell me what you disagree with if we're just reading the news. We all have opinions. Sure.
True.
Liberals are allowed to come in here and give their opinions on the news. Here's the problem. Often their opinions are based on fake news.
Yeah, we tend to take the fake news and we'll look at the facts that they present and then see how they spun it. And then we will present it honestly and directly and without all the leftist spin.
Maybe I think Kyle Kalinske would be perfect for Timcast IRL because we just pulled the news stories and then we talk about it and then he can comment and be like, well, I disagree with you guys. Here's why. And I think it'd be a great show. However, some guests gotta be culture war, because that's just going to be...
Especially if you want in-depth take on a specific topic. Like, you're a guest who can be on this show because you have a lot of knowledge, but also you have a more specific specialty with some of your content. I think if you want to have an in-depth conversation contrasting one point of view on an issue, Culture War is a better format for that.
All right, let's see. Vectorman64 says, any reason for the 3 minutes till show starts, even though the show starts up, countdown finishes? I don't know what that means. What does that mean? No idea. When the way we start the show is we used to have people ask that we do a 30-second delay. We press go live, we wait 30 seconds, and then we go. Now, I press go live, and then we have a preset 10-second delay, and then I wait 3 seconds. So it's about 13 seconds from when I press go live, I wait 3 to 5 seconds, and then I hit my camera and I start the show. You guys, our system has an automatic 10-second delay. So it'll go live, and then it should be about 15 seconds. And if there's not, then it's YouTube doing something. Don't know. All right, Cameron Keir says, do you guys think Biden makes it until Inauguration Day, or will they make Kamala the incumbent before the election? I think it would be bad for her if she became president before the election.
Yeah. I think it would. Part of her challenge is always going to be just to answer for the Biden-Harris administration and her role, or at least insisting her name be a part of that. And if she became the incumbent, she'd be even more responsible for the Biden legacy. I think you'll see her increasingly try and distance herself.
But
from
she's not
Biden
an
administration.
outsider.
No.
She's the vice president of the sitting president.
But she's going to try and distance herself at some point.
Yeah, she's been trying this whole time.
It's going to be hard for her to do that. She's playing two roles right now. She's the VP, and I think she's also the president. It's all in one.
Although she
thought
was
Jill
supposed
was
to
the
be in the Kamala Harris was in the Situation Room, I think today, or was it yesterday? Getting my days mixed up. But she was in the Situation Room over the Middle East war situation. And fancy they talk about that Situation Room. But anyway, she was there, and then she left early before things got concluded.
So, okay, I'm going to say this
She has
again.
to campaign. She's
But
very
she has
busy.
to campaign. She's very busy, yeah.
This is the same thing that happened with Jamal Bowman. Tons of accounts are tweeting that Cori Bush lost. They have not called the race. It's not been called yet. It's only 17.9% of votes are in.
There's a lot of
I'm assuming she's going to lose.
a lot of clickbaiting
Yep.
going on.
Yep. So when people were saying Bowman lost, I was like, whoa. And then I checked and I was like, no, he didn't. The race hasn't been called yet.
Not yet.
So I have no idea. People are claiming they called it. They didn't. That's what you get when you watch Timcast. We're not going to tell you the race is over when the race isn't over. I think it's likely she loses from the numbers we're seeing now, but we're going to wait for confirmation. All right. The Authentic Hydro PX says, once again, YouTube prevented me from finding this stream. Pretty racist of them that they would deny this person of color from getting his voice out. I mean, I am shocked and appalled. I am I should sue for discrimination. I am a mixed race person, and YouTube does not want me to share my voice. And our guest is black.
Yeah.
That proves it.
And we've got women here.
Intentional.
And a guy from South Africa. I mean, what's going on?
That's right. How dare they?
I am oppressed.
It's funny because
You are oppressed.
I'm oppressed.
okay,
and
guys,
offended.
update. It's not 50-50. It's 50. It's not 50-50, but it's 54-42. Cori Bush just saw a huge spike. It is now 19,000 to 15,000. I got to tell you, look, I think she's tracking to lose, sure, but she saw tremendous improvement just now. If she ends up winning, what are all these accounts tweeting that she lost already? The Gateway Pundit, guys, far left squad member Cori Bush loses by landslide in Missouri primary. I pulled up the Washington Post. They just updated the numbers, and it's improved for Cori Bush.
Yeah, the New York Times always has a good tracker.
I don't know. This isn't looking good.
I got the New York Times, and I got Washington Post, and right now, it's 54% to 42%. Cori Bush. It's not looking good for Cori Bush. She did improve 26% of the votes in. Maybe somebody knows something, that's why they're saying it. I have no idea. But here's where it's important. In St. Louis City, where Cori Bush is winning, 54% to 43, 38% of the votes are in. In St. Louis County, the greater area, Cori Bush it's 67 to 30 with 19% in. So it looks like what just happened was St. Louis City just came in. St. Louis City, there's two counties. It's looking like she's going to lose, but we will see. It's still early. If she can improve her margins in St. Louis City to around 67-30, then she probably wins. But we'll see.
The first two members of the squad movement to lose their elections.
Yeah, not surprised.
Black.
No.
I'm gonna run with
Well,
that tomorrow. I'm gonna have fun with that tomorrow.
But who?
Jay apologized.
Wesley Bell's black though.
Say it again?
Wesley Bell is black.
Okay.
But isn't this, I mean, you can comment on this better than I can, but they say that, you know, there are a lot of black women who support Kamala Harris, but black men aren't as sold on her. So maybe this is another thing that we're seeing, a division within a community. They say a lot of politics right now is going to turn out to be men versus women. I'm sure we'll see this on all sorts of levels within different sort of niche communities.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I do.
Is that what you've heard, that like this is becoming a difference between black men and black women?
It is. There are many people like Joy Reid, you know, who would tell you that black women are the backbone of the Democrat Party for the black community. She'll tell you that. But I do think that there's something there. You know, there's a defection going on, slowly but surely. The black patriarchs are saying that, you know, we don't want to support this party. That's a healthy thing, you know, to take place. And so we'll see where the trend goes. And they're going after President Trump, not so much solely the Republican Party. You know, the thing that has really caused them to want to support a Republican candidate is pretty much just President Trump. And so I don't know where that's going to go after President Trump.
Right.
But we're building some solid groundwork now.
So I just want to mention, we have a tremendous amount of super chats tonight from everybody angry that YouTube made it impossible to find the show. And I'd like to mention, so what I did was I went on my YouTube app, and normally when I'm checking for glitches or errors or anything, trying to maintain the show, I will check the app, and then the first thing that pops up will always be Timcast IRL. This time it was Vosh. Yeah. Shout out, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's interesting. But then around 8:40, it changed. So Girl Right says, found you. Thank you for the super chat. Mike Anderson says, big F to YouTube. They hid the show today. Going to up my monthly membership on Tomcats in response. I'm assuming that you typed it in your phone and it auto-corrected Timcast to Tomcats. That's okay. I like
Tomcast is the ProCat Discord chapter that we have.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. I'm making that up.
Let's see. We'll grab some more. Homer Pez says, betting odds are also fake news. They measure the trends of today, not 3 to 4 months from now. Gamblers are making a quick buck off of the propaganda. That is true. But it's better than polls. Polls are doing the same thing. If a week from now, Kamala Harris, I don't know, like cures cancer, her polling's going to skyrocket. Actually, maybe it goes down because she already cured cancer. But you get my point. So the betting markets are people saying, here's what I think is going to happen. I'll put money on it. Polls are like, yeah, I'd vote for them. I think the betting markets are better. But all of it is just based on the current news of the day. So Robert Peters says, YouTube is currently hiding your IRL from view. Had to type in Timcast IRL completely before I could even find it. And it wasn't even the first 3 choices. Seriously, F YouTube. That's another thing people have pointed out. Despite the fact that Timcast IRL is consistently the highest viewed live show for its time slot on YouTube, I think tonight there was a Spanish language stream that was bigger, had like 80,000 views. So we're not always the biggest, but we consistently average a high viewership. Despite that, when you search for Timcast or Tim Pool, it will show you haters insulting me before it shows you my own channels. Now, isn't that something? They're really trying. But I think the issue is that for people who actually watch the show, they're like, I kind of disagree with this guy, but he's just showing me the Washington Post and the New York Times, so I can respect that. It's hard to, that's the thing. They're like, Tim Pool's far right. And then you watch the show and they're like, that was boring. He's just showing you the news, you know? But it works out. All right, we'll grab a couple more, and then we'll have to take the results of this year election to the members only, along with our not so family-friendly show. The Silent says, something I'm worried about is Kamala has to certify this election. Might be another way they try to cheat. Remember what Jamie Raskin said? Trump's going to win, and Kamala's going to say, I will not accept these votes because Trump is disqualified. And then what? Well, actually, they changed the law so she couldn't, remember? The Congress passed a law saying the vice president couldn't reject votes. Mm-hmm. What happens if we get multiple slates of electors that are both not certified? Then she chooses.
Do you think we'll have the election results on November 6th or 7th? What are we thinking? If election day is November 5th, when are we going to really know?
Never. No, I mean it.
When are we going to get at least a story of what the results were?
Immediately, the media is going to call it for the Democrats, probably. It just really depends. I mean, we're dealing with an impossible scenario. I think there's a possibility that Donald Trump cut a deal with the deep state. and Kamala Harris is a throwaway candidate. They recognize they've lost. Trump's a deal maker. Trump's notoriously a deal maker. Trump's also a smart guy. I think there's a scenario where after they, I wonder if after they failed to put him in prison, that they're like, okay, fine, what do we have to do to prevent maybe like the mass arrest of federal agents? And then Trump maybe played a little hardball and then a bullet whizzed past his head or something like that. So who knows? Who knows? But I think actually, I would say this. I thought there was a possibility Trump cut a deal with the deep state. And I'm not saying that negatively. I'm saying he basically accepted their surrender and took their terms. And then someone tried to kill him. And now I'm kind of like, he may have done that. And they may have been like, nah. So who knows? It's going to be a wild election. I'm just going to make sure we order a lot of wings and pizza for people who are hanging out with us and watching our live show.
Yeah, you're going to need a lot of that.
You're going to be around for our live show?
When is it? Where is it? Is it election?
We're doing it here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to like run the newsroom at the same time, but I'll hang out.
We're planning on doing a 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. On stage at a venue.
Wow.
And but people are going to come and go.
Okay.
So I'll probably get up at some point, go eat, hang out, and then someone else will come in and we'll be tracking the results live. People will be hanging out in the stands, watching and hanging out. And it's going to be a wild show. It's going to be a wild show.
I'll hang out.
Yeah. All right, everybody. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? 1 like equals 1. Please don't censor Timcast IRL YouTube. That's what it means. That's what it means when you press the like button. And head over to timcast.com. Become a member. The members only uncensored show is coming up. It's not so family friendly. We get some spicy stuff talking about these books they're trying to put in schools, and then we'll track the results of this election. More numbers just came in. It's not improving for Cori Bush. In fact, it's only gotten worse, so it does look like she's on track to lose. We'll see.
Well, now I just want to be justified at having said that she lost.
Well, you're probably right. You're probably right.
So.
Smash the like button. You can follow me on X at Timcast and Instagram as well. You can follow the show for clips on Instagram at Timcast IRL. Pastor John, do you want to shout anything out?
Yes. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me on. Everyone, listen, if you want to fight against the woke agenda in the public school system and what's taking place as it relates to the pornographic books that are being placed at the fingertips of our children, you have an option and an opportunity to do so. You can join us for a national See You at the Library Day event that I'm having alongside Kirk Cameron and Brave Books. Books like this, queer, that doesn't belong in a school system. All right. This book, Push, which glorifies a father and a mother who molest their daughter to the point that the father impregnates their daughter. This does not belong in a school system. Books like this, let's talk about it. I can't open this book. I won't do it. It was hard to even show Tim what was going on in this book even before the show. This is sinister. This is corrupt. I'll read this part to you. This is a disclaimer by the author. It says the authors and publisher expressly disclaim responsibility for any adverse effects that may result from the use or application of the information contained in this book. In other words, we wrote a book, but if you do what we tell you to do in the book, you might harm yourself.
Wow.
All right. And then this book right here, Worm Loves Worm. This book is about teaching kids about same-sex marriage. And so I've been going from state to state, from school board to school board. I've now been to 14 states speaking out against this agenda. I've been able to amass over 300 million views, flip 2 school boards, one in Pennsylvania and one in New Jersey. I've been able to strike down a transgender policy in New Jersey, policy 5756. I've been able to remove dozens of pornographic books, but within that, I still need to do more. Yes, we are fighting the tyrants, the woke tyrants at the school board meeting, but I've now teamed up with Kirk Cameron and Brave Books to produce my own wholesome and virtuous book entitled Deep Within Doom's Dome. This book is currently out. You can go get a copy of it at bravebooks.com. Kirk Cameron and I will be at a given location. We'll release the location here soon, but we're going to be together reading at maybe 2 or 3 different libraries, sharing wholesome and virtuous stories with families. 2 years ago, Kirk wrote a book entitled As You Grow. And he wanted to go to the libraries that were bringing in transgenders to read to kids. And you know what he was told? He couldn't read his wholesome book to kids, but the transgenders could come in and read to kids all kinds of evil and demonic and filthy things. So Kirk said, you know what? I'm going to start a campaign. In 2023, he said, you know what? I'm going to every library that banned me and said I couldn't go. And he went. And they told him initially that the parents would not be interested in what he had to say. Man, it was tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
You know,
There were no seats. There were lines out the door.
exactly. Lined up by the droves, wanting to just hear virtuous content. And so within that, we also, and this year, want to do it again. He did it last year with Riley Gaines. This year, he's doing it with me. And we're on track to surpass the number of hosts at libraries around the country this year. We're at about 280 at this point today. Last year, there were 306 hosts. We suspect that by the time that this is over and we reach August 24th, that we might have nearly 500 to 600 different libraries around the country in hopefully 50 states. Right now, we're in 46 states, but by August 24th, we might be in 50 states where people are saying, you know what? Instead of allowing the left to indoctrinate our children, we're going to make sure that we put the best content in front of them to help them to develop and grow and to protect their innocence. And so I want everyone to consider going to bravebooks.com. Join us for See You at the Library Day. Get a copy of this new book, Deep Within Doomsdome. The focus of this book is self-control. And if there's anything that we need today in America, especially to teach our kids, it is self-control. And once again, thank you so much for the support that you all showed and displayed towards Kirk Cameron and putting together his new show. He's 10% away from his goal, but that thing is getting ready to go live. And Tim, you were so kind and generous. So on behalf of Brave Books and Kirk Cameron, thank you so much.
Well, thanks for being here. It's been a blast, and look forward to seeing more.
Yes.
Libby.
I'm Libby Emmons. You can find me on Twitter at Libby Emmons, and you can check out what we're doing at thepostmillennial.com and humanevents.com. And also, I remember that when Kirk Cameron did that, it was pretty amazing. I interviewed him to talk about that, and all of these libraries, they just said no.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm so glad you could join us. It's been really fun having you here.
Thank you.
Libby, always so fun to see you. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for scnr.com at Scanner News. Check out our work at Timcast News. We have an amazing team. Their work's incredible. If you want to follow me personally, I'm at hannahclaire.b on Instagram. I'm hannahclaireb on Twitter. Thanks for everything you guys do. We wouldn't be here without you. Have a great night.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.